Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
No! We will not service Washington.
Mr. Wolf.
And my, oh my, where's Commander Riker when we actually need him? Anyway, this is Renegade and the Rambler show, only on the Renegade Rambler radio network. And it's been a good weekend for sports for me this weekend, but that's beside the point. This is your host, Dan the Renegade Bailey, and I'm joined with Jeff the Rambler Johnson, and Suzanne is even in the room here. I think she's hiding in the corner here, making sure us boys behave. But anyway, she is here. I'm sure she'll chime in if we get out of hand. So, hey, Jeff, how was your weekend?
Well, I worked, so I guess it was fine. I have 2 weekends off every 6 weeks, so I'm coming into my weekends off.
Oh, that's good. I get every weekend off, but it only feels like I have one day off.
Now, this week, because of our wheel, this week I actually do have a lone day off Monday. I have a lone Monday going into my 2 weekends off. So this week sucks for work.
Just tell those prisoners behave themselves. Make your job easy.
So anyway, speaking of football, I wasn't going to lead with this, but I'll start off with it since you're talking about football. I'm not going to talk about the actual people sitting for the national anthem or kneeling for it. I think everyone that listens to this show knows exactly how we feel about anything that has the word national in it and how we feel about the national anthem. That being said, I just want to talk about Trump and his reaction. President Trump to NFL owners: fire players who kneel during anthem. Wouldn't you? I'm just going to skip down to the middle of it here. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, you'd say, "Get that son of a bee off the field right now! Out! He's fired." President Trump said to a loud crowd, to loud applause. All right. Do I like the national anthem? No, I don't. Because, number one, we're not a nation. And number two, I don't sing odes to the God of government. So, that being that, I had to get that out front right off the bat. At the same time, do I want a president using his bully pulpit to squash people's free speech? Now, again, this is not a First Amendment issue. I'm not even going to go there, and the ones that are just plain wrong. But this is a speech issue, and I'm sure the state constitutions in those states guarantee these people the right to have government not control their speech. So, do we want presidents out there squashing people's speech because it's offensive? And quite honestly, just look at Facebook and all the stuff on Facebook. Dan, I don't think you could possibly say you haven't seen anything on Facebook about this whole thing.
And do we really want employers to have the ability to fire us for what we think and what we say while we're not at the job and not, quote, representing the company? I mean, I understand the NFL players are on the field representing the team.
Exactly.
But it's a door, it's a Pandora's box you just don't want to open. Just don't open it. Leave it alone. Let each individual team handle it. And just, if you don't like it, then don't watch it.
Right.
Probably y'all just want to complain about it. You don't really. You will still watch the football, but you just want something to complain about. I'm a trucker. I can notice people just complaining for the fact of complaining from about 30 miles away.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm going to go back. Let's go here first. You said this, and that's true. When they're on the field, they are representing that owner. They are employees at that moment. If that employer feels strongly about this and he says you're going to stand or you're not going to be working here, that's his prerogative. It's his business. It's his he employs them. They are employees. Whether they want to think of it that way or not, they are employees. They can go find a job somewhere else.
But just
do I want the president telling them to do that, though? No, I don't. I don't want government sticking their nose in this because it's none of their darn business.
But see, here's the other dirty little thing. Okay, you post on Facebook that you work for so-and-so. Your employer, you say something your employer don't agree with. Then your employer says, well, he put down that he worked at, say, UPS Freight. So now we're going to say he was representing the company. He's terminated.
Right.
Because the company
and that's why if you look at my profile, you will not see a place of employment on there. I do not, anything I say here does not represent the state of New York. I mean, that's obvious that nothing I say represents the state of New York because the state of New York doesn't believe one thing that I do. So, but I don't put it on there. I don't represent the state of New York. And I give that disclaimer right now. I am not representing the state of New York. Everything I say on this show is my opinion and not that of the state of New York.
Yeah, maybe we should start posting a disclaimer. The views of the host are not that, and of the network are not indicative of the people they work for.
Right. Well, it's not indicative. But the fact of the matter is, where I was going with this whole thing, with this whole story, is that if you go online, you'll find all kinds of people now calling for these people to be fired because they won't stand for a national anthem. Boy, like you said, this is a slippery slope. Once we start down it, right now it's this speech. Right now it's Trump. Next, it might be Chelsea Clinton. She might be the next president. Can you imagine? Okay, so now our speech is offensive to them. So they're going to be calling for us to lose our jobs because our speech is offensive to them. Because we support pro-life. And actually, I'm going to stop saying I'm pro-life and say I'm pro-abolition. I'm going to take on Mark Kreslin's and Dan Fisher's terminology because I'm not pro-life. I am pro-abolition.
Yes, we are not
all life is precious.
We are not pro-lifers here at Renegade Ramblers Radio. We are abolitionists. We want to abolish human abortion. Period. Contradicata.
So,
without argument.
So that's the slippery slope we're on, is the fact that next election cycle, it may be our speech that's offensive and that is being decried as needing to be dealt with. So when I see the president talking about this, quite honestly, I understand why he does it, because it gets him ratings. He is a ratings guy. He wants to be in the news. He wants to be seen, and he wants to have the best ratings of everything on TV. And, I mean, that's who he is.
He is rather good at it.
He's very good at it. That's why he tweets. And look at it. I mean, he sends out a tweet, and the world goes crazy. I mean, everyone loses their mind.
They don't realize they're all being played like a fiddle.
Well,
it's amazing. They don't comprehend it.
Whether it's him or whether it's McCain or Graham or Lindsay or any of the others, it's all political theater. I wasn't planning on going this way, but why don't we go this way? The fact of the matter is, everything that comes out of Washington, D.C., It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all political theater. It's all played on the media to keep us either in a tizzy or ignorant of what's really going on. Case in point, Obamacare. For 7 years, it was repeal after repeal after repeal after repeal because they knew it was never going to be signed into law as being repealed. So as soon as Trump's in now, it's repeal and replace, and they can't even do that because they can't even come up with anything that's not just Obamacare, because that's all it is. But it's all political theater. It's all played to the masses to keep us good little tax slaves in our place on the tax plantation, producing tax money so that they can steal it from us. And I have a story on that coming up later, too, about stealing. The government's stealing from us. And this was outright theft.
I believe Rand Paul said he won't vote for this latest controversy because he said it doesn't actually get rid of it. It just changes it slightly, very slightly.
Sorry about that. I had to get a drink. Well, I've said all along that this isn't repeal and replace. This is rename. That's all it is. They've done away with repeal and they've done away with replace, and it's just renaming it. They've taken it, made it from what was the AHA, the American Health Care Act, or ACA, or whatever Obama had, and they're just replacing it with the one of the others, ACA, and then it's AHA, or AHA, now it's ACA. All they're doing is renaming it. It's the same darn thing, just with a new name. We want
to change it from Obamacare to Trump care. Or Boehner.
It's going to be Republican care. It's going to be Republican care. It's going to be, or Ryan care, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be Republican care. And it's going to be the same thing. All they're going to do is put a new name on it, and they're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars bailing out they're going to get a bailout, aren't they?
This is the exact same thing they did with Medicare. The Democrats got it through, and then the Republicans tried to manage it instead of abolishing it, and they ran on the whole, we will abolish it when we get power. They get power, and all they do is manage it. They don't do what they say they're going to do.
Well, like I said, it's all theater. It's all played to the masses. We are being played. We are the dupes. And the fact of the matter is, you watch the news and you watch the people, and it works. People just fall out. Well, look at this whole NFL thing. Let's go back to it. The NFL thing. That's all you can find on the news. Look at the news feeds. Look at especially today with it being football day. That's all you saw. You have one guy on the entire Pittsburgh Steelers team that went out there and stood for the national anthem because he was a Army Ranger that served in Afghanistan. So, more power to him. God bless him. He served. I respect that. That's fine. I still don't agree with the national anthem, but you know what? Good for him. But that's all I saw all day. Anytime I turned around and looked, everything that I saw was Steelers are sitting it out, and now other teams, and blah, blah, blah. All day long, it's all theater to keep us distracted from what's going on. I have a story here, if we get time for it later, about the de-dollaring of the economies, how the dollar is going to be taken away as the world currency. I don't know if we'll get that far. I mean, we've already killed most of a segment on the NFL and other things because we kind of got off on tangents on it. But it's just that we have to be careful what we wish for. And I even posted that on one of these. I said, listen, be careful what you wish for. Because if you get your way now, the next president's going to do the same thing, but next time it's going to be against you because your speech will be offensive. So we have got to just slow down here a little bit. And you know what? Who cares? It's not that big a deal. But to some people, it's a very big deal.
I was going to say, we burned up almost an entire segment on this, Jeff, that we weren't even going to talk about. And we didn't talk about the 61-yard record-breaking field goal at Lincoln Financial Field by the Eagles. We didn't talk about how the Packers came back in overtime and won. We didn't talk about how Penn State held on by the skin of their teeth and beat Iowa. And we didn't talk about how Alabama went into Vanderbilt and just shellacked them. We got talking all on the political side. Anyway, do you want to hit the want to hit the break now and then come back in with some actual political talk that people are used to hearing on this station?
No, we can. Do you have anything else you want to add on this? I mean, it's like I said, we have a bunch. I mean, and Suzanne knows better than most because right now she is going through quite a brouhaha on her Facebook page about. I'm thinking the pledge, the flag, the national anthem, all that, all combined, probably. Am I correct, Suzanne?
Holy cow! I have never seen such a response. The activity that I'm seeing here, you would expect on a public page with tens, if not 100,000 followers. If you mention these little symbols that is like a bull seeing red about disrespecting the flag or not standing up for the national anthem, the rhetoric is people died, so you have the right to do this, but the caveat being you better not do it.
Well, the flag does have red in it, so I mean maybe that's why they. I don't know. We just like to fight here in America. It don't matter what we're fighting about. We just like to fight.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let me read you a quote that I shared today. I saw it and I wasn't going to acknowledge it, but I finally did. And the gal ended up blocking me. But I'm going to get into it tomorrow. But here's one that to me is profoundly scary, because if this is patriotism, I don't want it. Here we go. What's unfair or unjustifiable about the pledge? Sorry, but we need government. Otherwise, people would be running around rampant like they are now, free to do whatever the blank they want. We need discipline and obviously more of it. This country was founded and based on Christianity. So what she's saying here is people are running around like crazy, doing whatever they want because we have no government. Do we have no government right now? This is scary.
No,
government's
we have too much government.
So we can run around and do whatever the blank we want, as long as we're not hurting others.
So, no, we can run around and do whatever the blank we want, even if we are hurting others. Look at Portland. We can burn stores to the ground, throw urine on cops, throw bricks at cops, and the cops will just stand there and take it.
Well, as long as you're on the right side. If you're on the side of progressivism and big government, they'll let you stand by, as we saw in Baltimore, and have your space to destroy. Heaven forbid you might want to show up and have a free speech rally and be on the side, well, what do they call, the alt-right, or something that is against the progressive government, and all of a sudden you're a domestic terrorist.
The interesting thing about that Baltimore deal was when the governor of Maryland, who's a Republican, came down and said, we've had enough of this, and basically told the mayor and the DA to back off. And he brought the National Guard in, and all of a sudden it all went from riots every night to like crowds of 5 people showing up because the National Guard stopped playing with them.
Yeah. And I saw this early on when Occupy Wall Street started, when I still lived in California, and it started off as what I thought a legitimate protest against fiat currency and our unsound economic system. And what happened was, I think these guys were onto something, because what happened? We had the Soros and these other players funding now, turning it into an anti-capitalism movement, a movement that was promoting anarchy, and it turned into almost a pure communist movement, because they weren't going to focus on what was really ailing us, which is our financial system here. Yeah. There was a guy that, go ahead.
I was going to say that, but that's what happened in Charlottesville. You had a group of legitimately concerned citizens that were going to protest the taking down of Confederate monuments. They were just normal people going to protest. And what happened? The radical right and the radical left came over and hijacked it and turned it into a fiasco. And that's what happens in all these now. Is you have the fringes coming in to destroying what's legitimate.
And I don't think the fringes are left or right differentiated. I think they're both paid by the same people just to throw people off, just to throw, the real message off track.
I was going to say, it's kind of interesting. The guy that was so-called leading the alt-right march in Charlottesville was alt-left Democrat as of November 2016, and magically had a come-to-Jesus moment after the election.
Yeah, I think it was a false flag. Interesting also, Chris Cantwell, I'm not a fan of his, but he's charged with a felony for using a caustic chemical agent on somebody. He was defending himself by the Antifa type leftists. Now imagine if the situation was reversed, but all of a sudden now you cannot defend yourself from an attack?
Well, Suzanne, after the break, we're going to come back with those very, very exact stories. I have about 3 self-defense stories I wanted to get into. So why don't you hold on to that thought, because we are past our break. This is the Renegade Ramblers show on the Renegade Ramblers radio network, 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A librarian.
A librarian. Having to do with books.
Yes, sir. Books.
Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. Your rights are as follows, Mr. Wordsworth. You are to be liquidated within a period of 48 hours. You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions that you inject into your veins with printer's ink. The narcotics that you call literature, poetry, essays, all of it an opiate. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. If I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
The Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete. But so is the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.
We do not worship the illegal, immoral, and obsolete state here at Renegade Ramblers Radio. Renegade thinking is always outside of the box.
Well, welcome back to the Renegade and the Rambler show, and I guess the Wasatch Report since Suzanne popped in. But anyway, we're only on the Renegade Rambler Radio Network, or R3N as we call it. And Jeff, you alluded at the break, since we are well done with the NFL story, because I just want to watch football. Can we just get back to watching football? You said you had some self-defense stories that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I have 3 different ones that I saw over the last few days. The first one is from Fresno, California. And this is written by a unknown person. I don't see the name of it. It's from CBS News. I don't see who's wrote it. Anyway, Fresno, California, a man, police call a Good Samaritan. They face a lawsuit after injuring the alleged robber he thwarted, reports CBS affiliate KGPE TV. In July, Fresno police say 30-year-old Ryan Flores used a gun to try and rob a Starbucks. Craig Jerry, 58, stepped in to stop the crime, and the two got into a fight. Both men were hurt, but the Flores family said their son suffered 17 stabs and slash wounds and plans on suing Jerry for excessive force. So he steps in. Obviously, he probably had a pocket knife. Okay. First off, let's go to this first. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Unless You're in California, that might be all you have. So
then it'll
bring
be
a knife to a gunfight.
Then it'll be 2 knives, because California's banned guns. So we don't have to worry about there being gunfights in California, because no law-abiding person will own a gun.
Well, then there's me who ignores those stupid laws when I lived there.
Yeah. Flores is currently in jail facing a felony attempted robbery charge. His mother, Pamela, she has a different name, Chiminenti, said the family does not condone what he allegedly did, but she said Flores should not have been attacked the way he was. All right, so first off, we got a guy, and here, let's show our YouTube watchers still of the altercation between the 2 men. Can you see that okay there, folks? So he attacked the guy that was robbing the place.
Yes, so the guy's allowed to rob a place with a knife, which is armed robbery.
Or gun. He had a gun. The robber had a gun.
Oh, the robber had a gun.
Yes, that's what I say. First off, folks, don't take a knife to a gunfight. If you're going to go to Starbucks and you're going to stop a robbery, please don't do it with a knife if he has a gun.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Be armed. I mean, so, okay, now I will say this is Fresno, California, and that's probably all he could get away with having was a pocket knife. So anyway, that's story number 1.
Then get out of there. Don't try to stop nothing. You're not fully equipped.
Yeah. No, in this case, it's just like how long ago, Suzanne, do you remember the one with the jewelry store robbery where the Good Samaritan that tried to stop it got shot and killed? I can't remember how long ago. Was that 8 months ago? Was that last winter?
I don't even remember that one.
Oh, yeah. An unarmed citizen tried to stop an armed robbery at a jewelry store and was shot and killed. Again, don't try to, if you're not armed, do whatever you can to become as small as you can, become invisible to those people.
I remember that.
Don't intervene.
I think my commentary is what it is now. Your goal in any situation like that is to survive.
Exactly. And as it turns out, I think they killed someone in the one of the jewelry store employees or the owner of the jewelry store as well in the robbery. So once the killing started, as law enforcement, if I'm armed and I was in there, I probably won't start shooting. I will become a small as I can and protect everyone around me. But the second the shooting starts, the second they kill the first person, all bets are off because now everyone's a target and I'm opening fire and I'm going to take them out if I can. I'm going to try to survive and I'm going to make sure everyone else around there survives at that point. Drawing your gun and starting something is not always the best course. Have the option, but that isn't always the best course. You have to watch what's going on. So anyway, that's not what we got into this story for. He is getting sued for self-defense. He's getting sued for his use of self-defense. Okay, here we go. This is from Tucson News Now. By Jennifer Cruz is the writer. Gas station clerk suspended after shooting robber. A woman who shot an armed robber while working at a Circle K in Albuquerque on Monday has been suspended over the shooting, but she said she's fed up with the company's lack of concern for employee safety and decided to quit. Robberies have been going on like this for the past few weeks. They have done nothing to protect me, Jennifer Wirtz told Tucson News Now the day after the robbery. Wirtz said she felt the need to protect herself, knowing that she was working the late night shift and that another nearby convenience store had recently been robbed. So Wirtz carried a gun to work on Monday, and a few hours into her shift, she was standing near the door when a man entered the store with a gun, and she said the man put the gun in her face, and she reacted. So she grabbed her gun and shot. So now she's getting suspended, and since she's getting suspended, she's quitting. She's had enough with these people. And here's a picture of her. Nice enough lady, but she's had enough. She's out of there. So we have...
Good for her.
Yeah. So we have self-defense story number 2. She was armed, and you know what? It's okay. Again, here we go with this. I have to qualify this because she is employed, and she has to obey the terms of her employment if she wants to stay employed. If she wants to remain safe, she may not obey those terms of employment, and she may carry a gun to work. Okay, so she did. I'm not going to fault her for that. Will you, Suzanne, would you fault her for carrying her firearm to work?
Was it against company policy?
Obviously it is because she was suspended.
Yeah, I would do it regardless, or I would just refuse to work for a company that had an anti-firearms policy, because as we know, gun-free zones are targeted over other zones because the anticipation is that the people that frequent those places will be unarmed and the kinds that are least likely to resist. And criminals are very clever in that way. They seek out the weak. You're not going to go see a robbery in a gun store. You're going to go see a robbery at a place like Whole Foods. Shortly after Whole Foods had a corporate policy of banning firearms, there was a shooter at the Whole Foods in New York. Those are the places they go. So I would choose not to work for a place that had a policy like that. Can I address the first story you brought up?
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, when they said he shouldn't have, he used excessive force. That's going to be the basis of this lawsuit that they're threatening, because he was stabbed 17 times. The perpetrator, the alleged robber. 17 stab wounds may or may not be excessive. The goal in thwarting criminal behavior is to stop the criminal behavior, not necessarily to kill the person, but to stop the behavior. 17 wounds may not be enough to do so. 17 wounds might have been enough there, but that does not necessarily mean it's excessive force. The other thing you have to consider is the unlikely event that he's going to find an attorney willing to represent him, not because California is full of attorneys that have morals and standards, but because the attorneys there will take this on a contingency basis. I'm doubting this family can pay legal fees up front, and I'm also doubting that there are going to be deep pockets that will pay for this case, you know, on the defendant's side if he is sued. The other thing is too, what kind of a jury you'd be crazy not to go to a jury trial on something like this, is actually going to go for a liability side and personal injury. So it's just crazy. I doubt it'll ever happen, but you have to understand, anytime you act, even if it is justifiable, every round you send, particularly if you have a firearm, at least we have a saying, every round you send defend has a lawyer attached to it. So what do we do then? Do we just sit there and let it happen? I think if we do that, then all is really lost.
Well, again, that's why I was talking about that jewelry store, and I just want to. The best thing may not be to intervene, because you may have an outcome that's even worse than intervening. Once violence starts, there's no. I mean, it's. But in the case of that unarmed person involving themselves in the robbery, that was just insanity. But there is a time to step back, protect your family, and not intervene. You may need to pull back, become very small, become inconspicuous, and that may be the best route. But the second, like in that jewelry store, the second there was shooting, they become imminent threats, because once they've killed one, they're going to kill everyone, potentially. Now all bets are off. You're going to have to engage. This guy here, with a knife and a gun, he probably should have become very small. That was a very, very stupid thing to do, to take a knife to a gunfight. He was lucky he survived it.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud their efforts. You just have to understand, what are your priorities? I know for me, I want to live and be around for my boys. And if I can get out of a situation and a robber gets out of there, I survive, that's fine. If other people are there that choose not to be armed, I'm not going to use my firearm to defend them. Tell you what, I was at a little coffee shop with my boys. I open carry, as you know, and I sat down and I saw this gentleman, lock on with his eye on my firearm. And a few minutes later, he, of course, commented about it and said, well, if anybody ever comes in here, I'll let you handle it then. And I just said, what kind of a man expects a woman to solve his problems? Why didn't you protect yourself? So it's not going to be me against criminals. I'm not a vigilante. I'm not a police officer. But I tell you what, a bad guy comes in there and points a firearm at me, I will act. But if there's somebody there that chooses to be unarmed and think I'm going to solve their problems, no, that's not up to me. I'm not going to do it. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole thing. There's a fine line between, number one, the vast majority of people that carry are not trained at all. They barely go to a range. They're not going to be proficient with their firearm. In a stressful situation like that, that is not the time to learn how to be proficient with your firearm. So, yes, it's great that you carry, and if the need rises, protect yourself, but don't go out of your way. Don't draw it and try to end a crime. If you have to end a threat, end the threat. But if it's just a crime being committed, you're not the police, you're not trained, don't necessarily jump in until it becomes a threat. Once it's a threat, you have to end a threat. And if he stabbed him 17 times, he stabbed him 17 times until he ended the threat. That is it, plain and simple. You end the threat.
I'll tell you one thing. My late great firearms instructor, Louis Auerbach, said one time at the end of a 2-day tactical shotgun class, what is the number one rule of a gunfight? And I raised my hand and yelled, win! And he points his finger at me and he said, don't. Do not get in one if you can avoid it at all. If somebody's in your home and you're upstairs and they're taking your Wi-Fi, let them. It's not worth dying over. It's not worth killing somebody over. It's just property. That gun comes towards you, that knife comes towards you, that changes everything.
Exactly. So we have this store clerk. Go ahead. Daniel, did you have something to add there? I'm sorry. Let me just step.
No, you guys have covered all of it.
Okay.
Sorry, Daniel's one of the hosts, not me.
Yeah. Well, so the other store clerk, she carried a firearm in contrary to her employer's policies, and she was suspended. Okay, that's fine. If there's the policies that, at the same time, I applaud her because she took her safety more over their policy, and that was the right thing to do. She needed to make sure that she was safe because they were going to do nothing to make sure she was. So number 3, and I did not print out the story, so I don't have all of the story in front of me. I just have a small audio file from this one. Number 3 took place, and if I remember reading the story correct, it was Florida. A teenager breaks into a lady's house. The alarm system alerts her. She goes home and walks into this young man exiting her house, and there's a confrontation. She shoots once, and this person died. So let me just play the media file, and then we can talk about this situation next.
Johnson was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Hey, what's wrong with her? She did not have to shoot him.
There's no reason that she should have waited until after he walked out the yard to try to shoot him.
If she called the police already, then why would she shoot him?
Relatives say they don't believe Johnson stole anything from the home, but detectives would not confirm that.
You have to understand, you have to look at it from every child's point of view that was raised in the hood. How he gonna get his money to have clothes to go to school?
Well, the investigation.
How is he going to get his money to get clothes to go to school?
That's how they do it in the hood.
And that's why I don't live in the hood.
Jeez.
I was just dumbfounded. I had to play the media file. I couldn't just read that. I had to play the media file. Because she said it, and she meant it. This is a young man. He's 17 years old. He's dead. He broke into a house of an armed citizen. The armed citizen defended herself. The police said she was defending herself in her property. As far as I can see so far with this one, there's no charges against the homeowner. The 17-year-old kid is dead, and the family's upset because they shot him committing a crime in someone's house.
Let me ask you a question. If this kid got out of there, let's say he found $1,500 cash, how much of that do you think he'd be using on school clothes or books?
No,
very little. If I showed you if I could show you the picture on the video, you would see his bling, his jewelry around his neck, the big cross. I'm not sure if it was white gold or silver. Either way, whatever it was, it looked rather expensive. He had quite a bit of it around his neck. I'm thinking he doesn't spend the money stealing on clothes. He's spending it on very expensive jewelry and other things.
If you're going to break into houses, maybe spend less money on bling and more on body armor.
Or don't break into houses. There you go.
How about not?
That'll work too.
Exactly.
But we can't do that because that's like saying the way not to have an abortion is don't have sex, and we can't tell kids not to have sex. We have to tell them to have safe sex. But anyway, now we're getting off subject, and I'm going to lose my head. But
here we are. She's asking, how does he get money? Well, my first thought was get a freaking job and stop robbing from people.
He does. It's called welfare, Jeff.
Well, that is it. They live in the hood. They're on welfare. And quite honestly, we can put a little of this blame on the Democrats and the Republicans, and we're way past our break, Daniel, I know. We can put a lot of the blame on the Republicans and Democrats who create this situation where we have just like earlier I said, we are now live on the tax plantation. We're tax slaves. They have moved a lot of people from the plantation slavery to a welfare slavery. They are slaves to the state, waiting for them to provide for all their needs. Government has created this situation. They have created these people that have nothing, have no hope, no jobs, no future, other than going and robbing those that work. All right. I guess we're going to take a break, Daniel.
Yeah, we can go ahead and take the break. I'll leave us about 10 minutes left to close out the show.
Okay. This is the Renegade Ramblers show on the Renegade Ramblers Radio Network, 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers.
From a jack to a king, from loneliness to a wedding ring, I played an ace and I won a queen, and walked away with your heart. from a jack to a king. With no regret, I stacked the cards last night, and Lady Luck played her hand just right to make me king of your heart.
Citizens, soldiers, I'm here at the order of General Robert E. Lee, commanding all Virginia forces. On April 15th of this year of our Lord, 1861, Simon Cameron, the Secretary of War of the United States, sent a telegram to our Governor, John Letcher, directing him to raise 3 regiments of infantry to be sent to assist in suppressing the Southern Confederacy. Governor Letcher's answer is well known to you, but perhaps not his words. His wire to Washington stated, "You have chosen to inaugurate civil war. And having done so, we will meet you in a spirit as determined as the Lincoln administration has exhibited toward the South." 2 days later, the Virginia legislature voted for secession. Just as we would not send any of our soldiers to march in other states and tyrannize other people, so will we never allow the armies of others to march into our state and tyrannize our people. Like many of you, indeed most of you, I've always been a Union man. It is not with joy or with a light heart that many of us have welcomed secession. Had our neighbors to the north practiced the less bellicose form of persuasion, perhaps this day might not have come, but that day has been thrust upon us like it was thrust upon our ancestors. The Lincoln administration required us to raise 3 regiments. Tell them we have done so.
Renegade Ramblers Radio Network. 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers.
Well, now let go me the breeze. I keep rolling down the road.
Well, welcome back to the Renegade and the Rambler show with the Wasatch Report sitting co-chair today.
While your back was turned, I had a show of when I'm getting ready. I was doing my our good friend, the Junk Bond. I had my drink and I have my cigar already, waiting for the end of the show.
That looks like something I had in Alabama.
So it's one of my Renzulis. Hey, this is from Renzul. This is from Twin Smokes down in Philadelphia, where I was in July. I love Anthony and the gang there, Big Frankie and all the gang. John the Cop. It's a great place to go. I know we're almost out of time. We'll stop talking cigars. We could do a cigar show sometime. We'll have Greg come on. We'll do a cigar show sometime.
He probably would enjoy that.
He probably would. Since we're on theft, let's just keep with the whole idea of theft. So let's change gears. This story I got from our good friend, the peace-loving hippie with a Barrett and a pit bull. You guys know who that is, and some of the listeners know too. But that is our good friend Sean Hoffine, who has a podcast on this radio network, The Brush Fires of Freedom. Listen to it's great. You got to listen to him. Sean is always on fire. He sent this to me today in email, and I haven't even shared this with either of you. I hadn't even a chance to. Internet raises $80K for a hot dog vendor mugged by government. Like all entrepreneurs, Beto Matthias saw an opportunity to support his family while simultaneously creating value for his community. Finding a prime spot right outside UC Berkeley's football stadium, Matthias began selling his craft hot dogs to willing consumers. No one complained about the quality of Matthias's hot dogs, nor did anyone have any objections to his presence outside the stadiums. But that didn't stop the state from intervening. Street theft is the next paragraph. Oh, this is from Foundation for Economic Education, and it's written by a Brittany Hunter. Officer Sean Aranis approached Matthias after he was going about his business and asked to see identification. Matthias, in complete compliance with the officer's demand, began sifting through his wallet in search of his identification. But this is where the story took a devastating turn. Before Matthias was given the opportunity to hand Aranis his ID, the wallet was ripped from his hands, and instead of merely examining the identification, Officer Aranis proceeded to confiscate the $60 Matthias had in his wallet at the time. It's not until after this strong-arm mugging that the officer finally explained to Matthias that he was being cited for failing to obtain a business permit. And if I had printed out the entire story and not just the print story, I would have a photo from a bystander actually filmed this taking place. Filmed the officer staking the money out of his wallet. He was actually literally mugged and robbed by a cop for not having a license to sell hot dogs.
What, did he refuse the officer a free hot dog?
No, he didn't do anything. Other than not having a license. Later on the story, he goes on to say, yes, I didn't have a license. I should have got a license. I didn't. But the cop actually took the money out of his wallet.
But since when was it the police that maintained the food permitting?
Well, that's not unusual. It's not about policing. It's about revenue creation. It's just like that guy that was killed by the police in a chokehold down New York City because he was selling loose cigarettes outside of a store. And that's you had to get a permit to do that. And we can argue that the guy was resisting, blah, blah, blah. We can argue this back and forth. I'm not going to argue that one again. That's old story.
If I approach an unarmed individual and I'm carrying a gun, can I detain them and take money out of their wallet? Is that okay?
If you have a fake badge, you can get away with anything.
No, he has a real badge. He is a real police officer.
That's what I'm saying. If someone like me tried to do that, if we went up to someone and took money out of their pockets, we'd be charged with a felony.
Just say you're an undercover cop and say you can't show identification because you're on a drug sting, but you had to stop him because he was selling illegal hot dogs.
He was complying. He was getting his ID out as requested. And the officer took the wallet from his hand and took the money.
We should be laughing about this, but oh my soul. The cop's taking the money. What happened to the money?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't gotten down. I didn't get that far into the article.
It was lost in evidence, meaning the cop's family went out for pizza.
Pizza, depending on how much money was there, they may have gone out for steak.
It was $60, I think.
It was $60.
That's enough for a decent steak dinner.
Yeah.
No.
So, what I guess the reason I brought this up, and we have 5 minutes to go to the end of the show. We have created a system where we have created an armed mugging unit that mugs the citizenry constantly. Go over the speed limit, we're going to mug you. We're going to take money from you. Don't have your identification handy, we'll mug you and take your money from you. And they're going to do it under the guise of law and safety. I mean, in this case, this was actually a crime. This cop needs to be fired, needs to go to jail. He committed a crime.
No, isn't that armed robbery?
That was armed robbery.
That's my point.
Because he had a gun. Whether he pulled the gun or not, he had a gun and he robbed the person. So therefore, it is armed robbery.
Took it by force. It is armed robbery. Period. End of story. He committed a crime. But the police do it every day under the guise of law. Like I said, speed. They're going to steal your money. Don't have your license with you. They're going to steal your money. don't have a hunting license, they're going to steal your money. Anything you do, we have created a system where we don't have a police force to protect us. We have a police force to extricate money from the citizens.
Wasn't this the problem that caused the founders to pick up arms and declare independence? Wasn't this just one of the many reasons?
Well, as I remember, one of the complaints against King George was that he sent swarms of officers hither and yon to, I can't remember,
the substance of the people.
Eat out the substance of the people. We live under King George in America. Well,
we just elect him.
We live under King Donald now. We had King George, then we had King Barack. Now we have King Donald. We live under a king that does the same thing. They send out swarms of officers to eat out our substance. I mean, that's not what this officer did, but that is the problem that I'm trying to address with this article.
That's exactly what the officer did. The officer sat there, took the money out of his wallet by force, and then walked away.
He committed an actual crime. He actually committed a crime.
Yes, he broke the law. But
otherwise,
will he be punished for breaking the law?
Had he given him a citation for not having the license, he would have been doing the exact same thing, other than he had law to protect him from the actual crime of stealing that guy's money.
But now, will the officer actually be charged?
You know what? I don't know. Let me go down. You guys talk about this while I go and look at the end of the story. Let's see if it says anything towards the end.
No, I'm sure besides the armed robbery charge, there's about 15 other charges that cop could be charged with. Something like along the lines of abuse of power and a couple other things.
Okay, here we go. I'll go down one of the last paragraphs. As for the officer involved, an online petition calling for his immediate termination has already garnered 20,000 signatures. Evidently, he's a university cop. However, the university seems apathetic to the entire incident, claiming that the officer was conducting business as usual.
Oh, so it's usual for an officer to rob a person along the side of the street.
All right, here we go.
That's good.
We are aware of the incident. The officer was tasked with enforcing violations related to vending without a permit on campus. UCPD. So yes, it was a university cop. Is looking into the matter. So, and no, nothing's happened to him. No, it must mean the show's over. Well,
yes, it is that hour.
Yeah, so, Suzanne, see you in the morning.
See you in the morning.
I'll be on at 9 a.m. with the Paradigm Shift, and Suzanne will be on at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. with the Wasatch Report. Go ahead, Daniel. Take us out. I'm ready.
And this has been another thrilling episode of the Renegade and Rambler Show. This is your September 24th, 2017 edition. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Please be aware we will have live shows in the morning. They range from 9 Eastern to 10 Eastern. You got 9 Eastern, you got Jeff Johnson at the Paradigm Shift. At 10 Eastern, you have Suzanne Sherman with the Wasatch Report. And then every day that I'm off work in time, you will have the Bailey Report effective Tuesday through Friday. And you two are always welcome to jump in if you have time to do so. But this has been a thrilling broadcast. If you like the video on YouTube, please subscribe. There's a subscribe button up in the screen. I think it's over here. And you can watch all the other shows on the button I'll add over here. It'll automatically play the playlist now that I figured that one out. We look forward to seeing you again next week. And remember, we have live programming through the week. We look forward to seeing you then. Until next time, stay safe.
Thank you.